This is Zachary Shelton, your science reporter, reporting to you from Fort Augusta, Scotland. We will be talking with some people who have actually seen the Loch Ness Monster. But first, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Loch Ness history. Loch Ness lies in Scotland in the county of Inverness. It is 24 miles long and averages 2/3 mile wide. At its greatest depth, Loch Ness is 975 feet deep. The surface of the bottom appears to be flat because the deposits of peat brought down from the mountains by rivers which flow into the loch. However, recent sonar mapping expeditions have found that the bottom of the loch extends below the peat surface. Therefore, the true depth of the Loch Ness has never been learned. One of the mysteries about Loch Ness is that it never freezes. The temperature of the water below 150 feet remains constant at 42 degrees Fahrenheit. One theory is that the surface water is cooled by contact with cold air and becomes heavier than the water below it. Therefore, the cold water sinks and becomes mixed with the warmer water below. Meanwhile, the warmer water is continuously rising to the surface, so freezing is impossible. An alternative theory is that the loch is kept in constant motion. Although it snows in hills around the loch, the large amount of water throws off so much heat that it is impossible for snow to stay on the ground. There have been many theories that the monster somehow escapes from the loch into the North Sea or the Atlantic Ocean. The canal which runs the length of Loch Ness contains only a small amount of water. The monster would have to pass through 19 separate lochs on the canal to reach the Atlantic. It's unlikely that it could make the trip undetected. River Ness flows into the north end of Loch Ness. It seldom has more than a few feet of water in it. Either route, the monster would be traveling from fresh water to salt water, which would make its survival questionable. Some people think the loch has huge caves under the water level that slope upwards, so the entrance is underwater, but most of the cave is above the water level of the loch. If the monster is a mammal, it could live in the caves and get all the air it needs. It appears likely the monster has always been in the loch. The first recorded sighting in 565 AD by the great Irish missionary St. Columba. There have been many more sightings by people living around Loch Ness than have been recorded. However, local residents are reluctant to discuss sightings because they have no real evidence and know how skeptical outsiders are about the Loch Ness Monster. The real hunt for the Loch Ness Monster began in the 1930s. Interest in the monster moves in jumps. Something exciting will happen, and there will be a big jump in interest. The people will forget about Nessie for a while. Then something else will happen and there will be another spurt of interest. There was a big jump in interest in 1934 when a picture of what is supposed to be the Loch Ness Monster was taken. This picture shows what appears to be the long neck and the small head of the creature sticking out of the water. In 1935, an eyewitness, a prominent Inverness businessman, watched the monster for several minutes. He has agreed to give us this interview, but wishes to remain anonymous. Thank you for coming here today. When did you first see the monster?
First saw the monster in the autumn of 1935. when my family and I went on an outing to a break-in hill which overlooks the loch. As our party was traveling up to the summit, one person looked down and saw an object moving through the water at great speed in the loch below us.
Can you tell us what the weather was like that day?
Yes, it was a bright, calm, sunny day, and the surface of the loch was very still, which was quite exceptional. Usually the loch is very turbulent.
Can you describe what the object looked like and how it moved?
Yes, as we looked down in the loch below us, the object appeared to be black in color and broader in its front than in the tail portion of the body. It moved with considerable speed through the water and created a violent wash behind it as it moved. It was hard to tell, but it appeared to be about 30 feet long, and it appeared to be propelled through the water by feet or legs under the surface. It was too far away from us to see if it had a head or if it had fins. One person in our group thought that it appeared to be a dinghy being propelled through the water by a motor. But just as he had said that, the object dove beneath the water and reappeared again about 50 yards further ahead. It swam across the surface for another 500 to 600 yards and then dove under the surface again, not to reappear.
Approximately how long did you watch the creature?
It was for about 5 to 7 minutes.
Thank you for talking with us today. When World War II came along, people lost interest and had other problems to think about. The first important post-war event took place in 1960 when Tim Dinsdale shot a film of what he thought was the monster. The film runs about 4 minutes. Upon examination by photo experts at the Royal Air Force, it was decided that the object was a living creature, and a large one. With us today is Mrs. Alistair Grant, a local farmer's wife, who actually saw the monster about 7:30 in the evening in August 1963.
Well, first of all, you have to understand that this monster was very difficult to see. We were all standing on the shore, and we just watched it from the shore. It was a hazy night. It was very calm. In fact, it was flat calm.
Did you see it easily? Was it obvious to the naked eye?
It was quite obvious. Even though you've heard of it, it's not the sort of thing that you expect to see.
What is there about it that looks odd? The shape or the way it moves?
It wasn't only the shape, but the way it moved. It cut through the water like a yacht. It didn't leave any wake or backwash.
There was no wake at all?
No, it seemed to cut away from the front. There was no sign of movement that you would expect if it had flippers or fins.
Did you see the humps?
Yes, we saw the humps.
How many were there?
There were at least 4.
Did you see the neck?
We saw the head and the neck.
How large would you say it was comparing it with a yacht?
I would say 30, 35, or 40 feet. It was difficult to make an estimation on the length.
How far away was it from you?
It was quite close to shore. It was about 100 yards from where we were standing.
Was it traveling parallel to the shore?
Yes.
What did the head and neck look like?
The only way I can describe it is that it was swan-like, and it had a flat head. When we couldn't see it any longer, that's when we got in the boat.
Did you have an engine on the boat?
Well, we rowed for about 100 feet, and then we turned on the engine, and that's when it disappeared.
Where were you in the loch?
We were at Baladick Farm, which is about 2 miles from Dory's.
Was it traveling in this direction towards Foyers?
Yes, it started to cut across at Glennaquart Bay, and that's when we got in the boat and started to follow it.
How high out of the water would you say the whole thing stood?
The neck was the highest point. It was 3 or 4 feet out of the water.
What color was it?
It was black. It was definitely black.
Was it already on top when you saw it?
Yes, and we watched it for about 20 or 25 minutes.
Did it shake its head at all or move its neck?
No, it was very eerie. It was very steady moving through the water and just cut a clean line.
Did it turn its head?
No.
Was there any sign of flippers or a tail?
No, there was no movement like swimming at all.
How did it disappear? Did it dive or did it just sink?
It sank, just like a submarine periscope going down, and then it reappeared for about 2 or 3 seconds.
Was that just the head and the neck?
Just the head, no neck. We didn't see anything else, just a black object, and then it went down.
Did you notice any appendages on the neck?
No, everything was very streamlined.
Was there any sign of a mane?
No. We pursued it, but it was a misty night, and we couldn't get anything but the outline of the creature.
Thank you, Mrs. Grant, for sharing your experience with us.
You're very welcome.
The monster has been seen close to the shore and at a distance of no more than 40 yards. Please look at the picture drawn as I describe the movement of the creature as seen by some eyewitnesses. Figure A shows the creature rising out of the water as a brownish drab-colored hump. In Figure B, the hump then flattens out. This process continues until the body assumes the shape of a good-sized hump with a smaller hump at each end. As seen in Figure C, opposite the two latter humps, there was a continuous kicking and splashing in the water. At the same time, a fourth smaller hump appears with water space between it and the other 3 humps. Finally, in Figure D, this fourth hump was lifted clear and proves to be the head of the monster, the head and neck of the monster. In the late 1960s, groups began using sonar equipment to find the Loch Ness Monster. Because the monster spends so much time underwater, sonar is very useful. Divers can't stay underwater for very long, and even with a strong light, they can't see more than 15 feet. A team of scientists from the University of Birmingham in England used shore-based sonar and picked up echoes of what they believe was the Loch Ness Monster. Their results indicate that there are several large unknown animals in Loch Ness. At one point, they tracked a group of 5 to 8 creatures swimming together. In 1972, a combination of sonar and an automatic underwater camera took 2 spectacular photos of the Loch Ness Monster. Many feel these are the best photographic evidence for the existence of the monster. This is an actual photograph of Loch Ness at sunset. Despite many disappointments and frustrations, the search at Loch Ness goes on. The monster hunters are not discouraged and feel it is only a matter of time before they get close enough and lucky enough to figure out exactly what kind of animal it is. Who knows? Maybe someday you will see actual pictures of the real Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster.